Craig, how are you, man? I don't know if you're out there, but my apologies that it's taken a little bit longer. You're right, it is 7 a.m. here. It is now 7:32. My apologies, everybody. I know I've scheduled this, and I was actually so I'm at the hotel, right? I'm at a place called the Hampton Inn, which is across from the Strip. You can kind of see the Strip right over there, right? There it is. And as you can see down here, there's a little Jack in the Box. So I walked over there for breakfast, and I'm sitting there ordering this loaded breakfast, having a nice little meal. And I'm thinking, okay, it's 7 o'clock, and I have to get ready. So I scheduled the show, and I was thinking, okay, it's 2 hours, and I have a little time. And then I realized about 10 minutes ago that it was like, oh no, I'm on West Coast time. It totally didn't occur to me because I was totally like, because it was a 2 hour difference from Chicago. So I just thought it was a 2 hour difference instead of 3. I forgot it was 3. So my apologies for the late start, but so I thought I'd run back to the hotel and come and join you guys and say hello. And I went to Jack in the Box, and I thought I'd grab a coffee to try. This is their high-grown Arabica. So if you're not too familiar with Jack in the Box, Jack in the Box is this primarily a West Coast fast food chain. When I was living in Honolulu all those years, there's a lot of them out there. And so whenever I'm in this part of the country and there's Jack in the Box, I like to stop there once in a while. One of the things I like about Jack in the Box is that they have their menu is pretty much available 24/7. Meaning that if you're really in the mood for burgers in the morning, like I was never a big breakfast sandwich person. I liked burgers better, so I always got a burger for breakfast. Today they had their loaded breakfast, which is basically like a sourdough jack kind of bun, bread. So toasted bread, griddled bread with, griddled sourdough bread with 2 fried eggs, 2 slices of cheese, 1 sausage patty, a slice of ham, and a couple pieces of bacon. Pretty darn good. Comes with a hash brown. I got some fries with it just so that I'd have enough, potato. And it came with a Diet Coke. This is the Diet Coke. Actually, a lot of times when I'm having that stuff, I'll have Diet Coke. But I thought because we're going to do the show, let's do the coffee. So let's have a look here. This is the coffee. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So this is the Jack in the Box coffee. It looks fairly standard. This is not necessarily freshly roasted. I ordered it when I walked into the store. The air pot had already been brewed, and they never brewed more for probably maybe up to an hour. Coffee milling. It's not disagreeable. It's just very, coffee tasting, very neutral, just very clean. It's a very clean cup, not terribly compelling in any way, just like solid brewed coffee. And it doesn't taste very defecty at all. It's quite pleasant. Maybe that's because it's hot. I'm not sure, but not terrible. The Jack in the Box high-grown Arabica. And I know I missed a show or two in Chicago. I realized I scheduled one. I totally had forgotten about that because it was one of those things where like everything was so crazy at the show. So if you're not familiar with, this past weekend was the Specialty Coffee Association's Expo, which happened in Chicago. And it was a great time. And I really, it's one of those things where you get together for this show. And since I've been going to it for 20 plus years, I have a lot of friends. And so some people you only see once a year. Some people you see less than once a year. I got to see a lot of great people that I know. Jonathan Cates from Broadway Coffee in Kansas. Stephen Lee was there. Then, you know, I hung out a bit with, got to hang out with David Castle. You know, it was really, really a nice time. And of course, you know, got to see Sylvia and Adriana from Mexico, which was really great. And there's a lot of stuff to do there. But one of the nice things that I was able to do this year that I was really pleased with is that I didn't come home with a lot of, or I didn't leave with a lot of stuff. Like, I left with very little items. Like, I got a couple samples. This particular one is, this is from Honduras. This is one of my friends, Mari Portillo. She was the barista champion of Honduras for a while, a few years ago, and so this is her husband's farm, Finca Las Juntas, the farm of being together. And Manuel Perez is her husband, and this is their farm. This is some of their green coffee. She also gave me a roasted coffee sample from her farm, which is cool. And so these are nice coffees. So this is from the Copan region. And what does it say here? It is a Catuai. Oh, excellent. Actually, this is kind of exciting. Oh, it's sealed. Okay, so this is a Catuai Panamera. And Catuai Panamera is it's what it means is probably a blend of two coffees, Catuai and Panamera. Panamera is a relatively new varietal of coffee that was produced to be disease resistant by the ICAFE, which is the Honduran Coffee Association. And I was just talking to, I think I was talking to Erwin Mirisch about this over the weekend. A newer varietal because what's happening in the world is that global warming is happening, so that means that as global warming happens, we're going to start losing some of the arable land, meaning that the ideal region for coffee production is, you know, over 1,000, 1,500 to 2,000 meters is the really ideal altitude for quality, especially coffee production. As global warming, and that happens because, we're able to get those conditions by going higher in the mountain. Now, Mom, good morning. Mom, my apologies. I started right around 10:30 East Coast time because I had totally forgotten that I am on the West Coast instead of mountain time. So my apologies. And so we've only been going for like 10 minutes. And I haven't really said much of anything. And so as the arable land, as the temperature rises, so there's the temperature of the world, and then there's the mountain, and there's a certain zone on the mountain that is ideal for coffee production because the altitude gives the right amount of temperature range and exposure to the sun and all that. As global warming continues to warm the planet, that pocket of arable land that's ideal for specialty coffee production will rise on the mountain, right, to get to the ideal temperatures and conditions. Now, of course, it's a pyramid, essentially, and so if you're here at the base, there's lots of land, but the further up you go, there's less and less land, which means that less and less land means less and less production, and then less and less production with greater demand means escalating prices. So it's going to become more difficult than ever. Rusty, good morning, man. How are you? I did have a good time. I got to see and hang out a bit with Ralph. Ralph did not come out in the world, but I got to see that. And is my hair green? Yeah, man. Actually, it may not come across so much on the normal streams, but actually it's been this kind of tone for several years now. A couple of years now. So why do we have this green? You're probably wondering, like, why am I not just leaving it like James Hoffman and let it get gray? Because, you know, I always like the idea of having colored hair, but I hate the idea of having to strip and bleach the hair because it will damage such beautiful hair, and, you know, it just damages your hair, and that's not good. But now that I'm older, and, you know, when you have black hair, man, it's really difficult to try to color it. And so when I was younger, I wanted to have purple, but I wasn't willing to strip it. And so when I put the purple tint in the black hair, you can't see it, right? You can't see that. And so as I got older and I started to get more gray, I was like, the gray will be a good base for color. Now I used to use this other green that was kind of like, and so why did this start? This started because I'm a fan of a K-pop band called Momoland. They've since disbanded, but my favorite K-pop star, Nancy, dyed her hair green once, and I was like, oh, that's really nice. I'm gonna go do that. So I started doing that just for fun. And actually, I used to have a crush when I was in art school back in 1987. I went to the Maryland Institute College of Art for a year, and I would go to the photo lab. Well, I guess not a lab, it's a dark room, right? There's a dark room, and there was this girl there. She had bright green hair, and she wore green Doc Martens and dresses. I loved her. I was so in love, so in love. So I've always liked that. But now that I have gray hair, I can do it. But the other tinting I used to use when I started doing this was a little bit different, and so, and maybe the gray wasn't as, maybe it's getting whiter now instead of gray. But it actually, when you put it on, it kind of looked blue. So a lot of people thought it was blue, but it was really green. But, there it is. Tribute to Aqua. If I was going to do a tribute to Aquaman, I'd probably have to buff up so I could take my shirt off and walk around. That would be a whole different way of doing it. But like I was saying, so we've got the Panamera is this blend of coffees developed by ICAFE. And ICAFE is the Instituto Hondureño del Café, essentially, the Honduran Coffee Institute. It's the government agency that oversees coffee production in Honduras. And they've developed this blend that's supposed to be able to be very be very climate resistant, very disease resistant, very insect resistant, so nematodes don't really affect it. And it can now be grown at 900 to 1,000 meters. So instead of having to be 1,500 to 2,000, it can be 900 to 1,000. So as global warming happens, it can stay lower at where there's more land, and you can increase production. And it also is a hardier varietal that will produce more per tree, which is what everybody wants. I mean, all of the government institutions that oversee coffee in their respective countries are always going to be interested in disease resistance as well as greater production. And so years ago, the Federación, the FNC from Colombia, the Juan Valdez people, they created something called the Castillo. And the Castillo, which means castle, is supposed to be very disease and drought resistant, and with a lot of production. And that's a coffee that when it came out, that's really was the purpose. And everyone's kind of like, it's not for specialty because it's not very good. And then, of course, somebody cultivated it well, and it won some of the competitions, and now it's very respectable to have Castillo in the specialty world. And so Panamera is a new varietal that I really don't know too much about. Erwin Mears was explaining this to me this past weekend, and I was like, oh, I need to try more of this. And so, surprisingly, it's in this coffee. So there's a Catuai as well as the Panamera. And Rusty's asking, did you see that the 24 karat gold espresso machine? No, I totally didn't see that. And here's the thing, so like, this is my experience at the show, is I'll go to the show and I will walk the show, and it's a 3-day show. I sometimes wish it was 4 because 3 days is barely enough time for me to actually walk the show floor. And I mean, I'll walk the floor the entire day. Like, I'm not attending classes typically, or just to walk it takes me all that time. And I did it, and I didn't see everything on the floor because there's so much to see, but also there's so many people that I know that I'll talk to. So it's kind of like you walk, hey, what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And then you look at a product, blah, 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 blah. And you talk to someone that's right of the blue, blah, 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 blah. So maybe I'll get to see a third of the show each day. And then I'll never make it back. Like, there's this guy that had these vacuum cold brewers, right? They're actually pretty cool. They're made in China, and they look pretty cool. And I was like, I should buy one of those. So I saw it the first day, the first morning. Within the first hour that I was at the show, I saw it on Friday. I never had the time to go back. So I'm going to call him up and ask him maybe I can get an order in. But some of the things that I thought were cool, actually, the coolest thing I got was this from Thailand. this little keychain brewer. So there's a company, OSD, I think it's called. When I get back home, I'll have a lot more better detail because I'll have it all like laid out. But they make these brewers, really pretty brewers. I'll make a video about this one too because they're in this shape and then they're larger. There's porcelain, and if you've ever seen traditional Thai pottery with the paint, the hand painted and the glazing, it's really pretty. They make a ceramic brewer that comes in that style that they're $150. I was like, whoa, that's kind of expensive. Also, I ran into a guy named Nick Boyle, one of our viewers, and he was like, I watch your show, and I think you're wrong. I was like, all right, you think I'm wrong. All right, I like that. You know, when it was talking, he's like, there is a difference between brewers. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And because he was comparing it, he basically uses the origami and the April. Now, I don't have an April, and I almost bought an April. So I went to the slow brew booth, and I was like, how much are the Aprils? $47.50. $47.50? And that's just enough to make me balk. So I was like, I'm not going to buy that. The only big thing that I really did buy was this cup. There's a cup, and I'm going to do a video on it. Well, when I say video, I mean a live stream about it. There is going to be a video about the cup itself as far as the interaction with the owner or the representatives that were talking about what's going on with it. But we're going to do a taste test with it. And basically, it's this cup. Let me go find it. I'll grab it. Here it is. It's called the two-way cup. And what this is, you can look it up online, I think. And this is made in Hong Kong. And the idea is that there's a cup here. There's two different sizes. This is the smaller one that is 130 milliliters. Let's open it up. And you know what? Here's the thing. So, of course, the guys that make it, they're from some coffee company out there in, I think they're the ones that make it. There's a coffee company. Urban Coffee Roasters. So this coffee company, Urban Coffee Roasters, I believe these are the cats that are making this thing. And I ran across it, and one guy, I don't know if the video is going to work out because this one guy's talking, and he's like, well, this is how we make it. It's we're made with blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, and I can barely hear him on the show floor, so I'm wondering, can the microphone hear him? Can I use AI software in the editors to clean up this audio enough so that I can boost his signal without it totally falling apart under compression? I don't know. But anyway, they're a roaster in Hong Kong, you know, typical specialty roasters that are roasting very light coffee. And so they're giving the taste sample for this with a geisha, very lightly roasted, very like high note geisha, which is cool. But so the claim is that this is the cup, right? The claim is that drinking from this spout, so there's the spouted end, right? The spouted end. Drinking from this versus drinking from this will give you different results of the coffee. One will be brighter, one will be sweeter. And I was like, I mean, it makes sense because the way that the different ways it would deliver a liquid to your palate, there's going to be some sensational difference. I mean, this is pretty much what Riedel Glass has done has exploited in the wine market, right? But you know, I thought it's fairly attractive, right? I got the one that's orange. They have a bunch that are like blue and green and whatever. They're all this light, but I like the orange. Keone, aloha, how are you, man? Good to see you. And yeah, so you know what? We could try it right now. But so they were using this geisha, and I did notice a discernible difference in the flavor perception between the two sides, which is why I decided to buy one. And they were only $17. So I was like, oh, $17, I'll buy one of those. The bigger one was a little bit more, but it was just so big. I was like, I don't need it to be too big. So we're gonna take our Jack in the Box coffee, pour that in. All right, let's see. Very good. Okay, maybe on this coffee, it's not so discernible. I think you probably need something with more delicate flavors in order to notice the nuance. Or maybe it's just bunk science, I don't know. But $17, I thought, oh, that's not too bad, I can try that. But the April brew at $50, I was like, $50? $50? Good Lord, man. And then that was at the closing of the show, like everyone's leaving. And I was like, well, how much are these brewers? $50? $50? You need to get rid of stuff. Hario is giving stuff away half price, which was a disappointment, Hario, because like a lot of times at the Hario booth, they're giving it away. Ask Rusty, Rusty knows. It's a free-for-all. This year, they're like, half price, what the? I was like, I'm out of here. I got everything I need. But what else did we see? So I got a friend of mine from Colombia, right? Is that right? I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, my friend from Brazil. See, I want to say something wrong. Gave me this. I don't know what this is. This is something called banana niña. Oh, banana niña con amera, which is some kind of candy from Cerro Verde. Thank you very much, by the way. I appreciate that. What else did I get? I got some coffee from Rogue Wave. One of my buddies gave me this. The Ethiopia, what does it say? Teshome Gemechu. We're gonna taste this when I get home. You know, I was thinking maybe I'll brew, but I don't have anything to brew with it. And I was thinking about buying the April so I could, you know, make coffee here on the show while we're on the road, but forget it. I'm not paying $50 for that. And then Gold Mountain Coffee Roasters, I did a cupping with them. They gave me a little spoon here. That's kind of nice. Little cupping spoon. I did walk around the first day carrying a spoon in my pocket, which I'm not really in favor of because I think that's a bit too dweeby. I don't want to be too geeky about this. Like I remember the guys would travel with some. So the traditional cupping spoon is made in silver, and so you see, like at least when I started out, I don't see it so much anymore. But before, these guys were walking around with their spoons. They would travel with spoons, and I was like, just give me a soup spoon. I'm okay with that. I don't necessarily need to have my own personalized cupping spoon. And they get personalized, like put your name on it, right? I have a couple that have my name on it, different sizes, but I kind of like this shape. This is a nice shape. It's got a good drop here with a good bowl, so you get a nice sample. So definitely better than a soup spoon, but I'm all right with a soup spoon, right? That way you can hold it and so that's kind of fun. Thanks Gold Mountain. And then I ran into another friend who was like, hey man, I'm making Ben Salinas, and he was like, I'm making you want some swag? And I was like, I'm always good with swag. So he's like, you want some baggage tags? I was like, baggage tags, all right. So this is Luminaire Coffee, and Luminaire Coffee, Ben Salinas, these guys are they're not really making product necessarily per se, but they work with companies to help them develop better technology in their product. So companies like La Marzocco and them, they've had a lot of interaction with them over the years and helping them improve technology that goes into the machine. So I've had some of the prototype stuff in our shop over the years because they're very kind, and for some reason they think that I'm insightful. So they're like, here, take some bag tags. I said, I totally need a baggage tag for my my one little bag that I'm carrying with me. Marty Rowe from Workbench Coffee gave me his notebook. I had been seeing Marty's scribblings on his Facebook post for a little while now, and I was like, so what did I see? There's this one particular page that he shows, here, this. These are like doodles that he got, that he was doing his own like journals, because Marty's a machine technician, master machine technician. And he's, he created a book that has a lot of the information that he has from his doodles. And I was like, that's a cool thing. I didn't realize that 16 amps or 16 gauge wire was really only good for 13 amps. So as you can see, 16 is good for 13 amps, 14 gauge is good for 15, 12 gauge is good for 20, 10, 30, and that's the thing. One thing about to keep in mind is as you're shopping for extension cords, you'll see, go to Home Depot, you'll see extension cords at fairly decent prices. And you'll see with casings that are pretty thick, like you look at, you're like, oh yeah, that's a robust, solid, what do you call it? Electrical cord. And then you look at the technical specs, 16 gauge. You're like, what, 16 gauge? This thing could be a 12 gauge wire in this, oh my gosh, my air conditioner's turning on. It could be a 12 gauge wire giving me power, but it's not. It's only 16 because the sheathing is incredibly thick. So that's why this was like, this is going to be helpful, right? So you see 16 can only really handle 13 amps. Once you start to exceed 13 amps on a 16 gauge cable, it will start to get warm. And if it starts to get too warm, it will melt. The ultimate problem is that it could melt the casing of the wire, which then can contact other things, spark, and catch fire. So you want to avoid that. So if you're cabling, you want to try to match your cabling to your power draw. And this is also true if you're buying like, Romex wire to go in your walls, because they're in your walls, and if you're pulling too much current through your Romex, that again can heat up too much, melt, and then cause fire, and your house burns down, and life is very unpleasant. What else is there to tell you about this show? I got to meet Hoon finally. I've been talking to Hoon over the last couple of years, just kind of off and on, like on social media as well as on the phone, and I've appeared on his live streams a couple times, which is really great. I really appreciate that. And now the air conditioner's running. Hold on a moment. And so it's cool to hang out with him and see. If this was his very first SCA show, which is for most people and for him this is true, but for most people that come to the SCA for the very first time, it's typically very overwhelming. Like it was very overwhelming for me back in 2003 when I first went. I was like, I don't even understand what's happening. And back then I came across this thing called the USBC, the United States Barista, or just a Barista Championship. I didn't know it was the United States. They were having both the US and then the Worlds. And I remember I was watching it one day, and people are like, have you ever seen it? Or if you haven't seen it, these competitors will make drinks and they'll serve them. So they make a cappuccino, and the MC's like, let's have some applause for the cappuccino, and people will applaud and cheer. And I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, what in the world is this madness and stupidity? Look at these people. What is wrong with them? Freaks. I said, I vowed at that moment, April of 2003, I will never be one of those people. Yeah, that worked out well. So I'm in Vegas, right? So I left yesterday, and I had a meeting with some friends here in Vegas, and I wasn't sure what time the meeting was going to be. As we've been planning this trip, we weren't sure what time we were going to do the meeting, and then eventually, right before I left for Chicago, then we finally decided 4:00, and I was like, no, 4:00. I totally scheduled my flight to be the first flight out of Chicago, which means I have to get up at 4:30 and go to the airport so I can get on the plane to come here. I was like, oh, whatever, that's fine. So I flew here on yesterday, took the first flight out of Chicago, came here to Vegas, and got to the hotel, which is fairly nice, and they were very kind to let me check in at 9:30 in the morning. And they had a room. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. But I've been staying at Hilton's a lot over the last couple of years, because mainly my cousin is a general manager of one of the Hiltons in the world, and so he's included me with his friends and family discount, which gives me great prices on Hilton properties. not incredibly cheap. Like, it's not like you're staying at like $400 resorts for like $50. It's not crazy like that. But it's a fairly good deal. And I'm staying away from the strip because I don't want to be on the strip. Number one, because I'm a cheap guy. And when you stay at a strip hotel or you stay at a casino hotel, they want to charge you resort fees. And I'm like, resort fee for what? I need to go to a conference. They're like, well, that's for the, for the pool. I don't want to use the pool. Fat guy's not going to be at the pool in Vegas. Are you crazy? It's not even warm enough for the pool. So this time I was like looking online. I was like, ooh, the Hampton Inn. No resort fee. I don't need a car, so I don't need to park. I think it's like 85 bucks. I was like, 85 bucks, all right, I'll stay there. And it's not too far. It's on the other side of Tropicana, on the other side of the freeway. There's actually a Jack in the Box next door, which is why I got the coffee. And then a catty corner from me, there's the only In-N-Out in Vegas. So I think before I go to today's trade show, I'm gonna hit the In-N-Out. And then one of the big things that's here for me personally, Tiona, you would like this. They opened a Zippy's restaurant here in Vegas, like in October. And if you're not too familiar with Zippy's, and Rusty knows this, Zippy's is basically the Hawaii Denny's, right? It's mostly on Oahu. Like, I think they opened one in Hilo now. There's one in Maui. But for the longest time, it was only Oahu. But it serves food that is very geared towards the local palate. And my particularly personal favorite meal there is their fried chicken with chili, cheese, and onions over rice. And I like to put a lot of Tabasco on the chili, Tabasco on the mac salad. And so, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm supposed to meet my friend Genevieve, and she's like, what do you want to eat today? I was like, the place I really want to go is Zippy's. I don't care about anything else here. I don't care whatever's here in this place. We just need to go there. And Zippy's is now having this special, this special program. Over the next few months, or whatever time period it is, if you can do 4 transactions over 20 bucks, you'll be entered into a giveaway where you can get a free trip to Japan. I'm like, and when I first saw this on my apps, I was like, on social media, I was like, this is like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I was like, So I put a message in there. Does this work for the Vegas one? And so I've been thinking about, okay, how do I make 4 $20 transactions in the short amount of time that I'm going to be here? Because this is the only location outside of Hawaii. There's no other place to go. There's only one. I hear they might be opening another one in North Vegas sometime in the future, but this is the only one. And I'm like, oh, all right. So I have to do this and do this and do this. Maybe, so I'm going to go out to eat. So maybe we'll split the bill in 2, and then I can put on 2 separate transactions and then buy some like cakes. This is really what I'm thinking. Yeah, you know it. Chili chicken mix. Joe says, I have no idea what he's saying, but it's definitely foolishness. So that's what we're doing here. And so what else is there? So I'm here for what's called the National Association of Broadcasters show, which is the biggest trade show for production. Video, movies, television, and it covers the wide spectrum, like live streaming, YouTube creation, TikTok creation, whatever. But it's more involved with the production and distribution. So it takes up 3 different halls at the Las Vegas Convention Center, which is 3/4 of the space. One side of the hall, the West Hall, is all really about transmission and distribution, which I go there and I have no idea what's going on. But basically, guys that are selling transmission towers and all kinds of solutions for transmission of broadcast in any form for any part of the world. Then there's, the one side that I tend to gravitate towards is the production side. So a lot of the production equipment and focus, I go there. I spend a lot of time there and looking at new gear, which is nice because it's the first time that this is my 3rd year attending this show. And so the first 2 years was really just me like, whoa, this is crazy. This is just out of control, and I need to buy more gear. Like, I keep thinking at these shows, like, I need to buy that. I need to buy that. But now this is the first year that I've come here, and I'm like, okay, I am well settled enough in what I'm doing and know exactly what I'm doing to know exactly what few items I do need. Like, I don't need to go buck wild and crazy. So that's a good feeling to be here and be like, all right, I am in my groove with production for what we do here on this channel, that I'm not crazy, so. So today is day 2 of the trade show here, which means I've been attending trade shows now in 2 different cities for 5 days. I will not, so the show ends tomorrow. I will not be at the show tomorrow. I'm going to be getting ready to go to Salt Lake City. So I head up to Salt Lake. We could drive up to Salt Lake City. Tomorrow I'm going to go visit with a friend of mine who I found out she's like living in St. George, southern Utah. I was like, what? Because she called me. She's like, are you ever traveling my way? And I was like, yeah, I'll be in Southern California sometime this year. She's like, no, I moved to Utah. And I was like, what? You moved to where? And she's one of my friends who does coffee, and she's a coffee producer down in El Salvador. I mean, amazing, beautiful, beautiful coffees. But I don't know why she moved to Utah. I was like, why are you in Utah? That's just craziness. I'll find out tomorrow. What else is there to tell you here? We've got coffee. We got some stuff from the trade show here. What do we have? Got anything interesting to show you while we're here? I got some equipments. I've been buying gear. Like, this is like a little gear arm. Actually, I'm building this gear arm for my truck, because what I want to do is I want to take the iPhone and mount it on the glass. A lot of these like iPhone holders, you put them on and they're like, they mount to your vent, air conditioning vent. I don't like that. Like, I don't know whether it's just the Tacoma that I have, but like, I want to have as much AC blowing on me as possible when it's hot. I don't want to block it, and I don't like the idea. So I'm using grip gear to, we have suction cup mounts in here. There's a suction cup mount in here. I think this is it. I hope this is it. Yeah, so I got a suction cup mount that goes to the glass, 1/4-20 with this articulating arm, and then I've got a clamp. I guess I could buy one of those. I could buy one of those, MagSafe things, but I haven't decided which one I'm going to get. Maybe I'll get the one from Rode or something like that. Keone says, for your information, it may be in DC area around the end of July or begin. Excellent. I would love to come and hang out. Be great to see you, and yeah, let me know. I don't really have any plans to be away during that time of year. I don't like to travel so much during the summertime because, when you do a lot of travel and you do a lot of travel most of the year, you get used to traveling in a certain way, meaning that it's not so insane and crazy and like crowded. So typically I don't go anywhere during the summer. I try not to, at least. Plane travel. I probably will have to go. Actually, they were talking about doing something in Southern California in June. I forgot what it was. Oh, the CQA Expo was happening at Warner Brothers. I might go to. I was thinking about maybe going to that, but that would mean 2 trips to LA in about a month, and I don't know if I'm down with going to LA that often. Anyway, but would love to hang out and get coffee and talk story. That'd be awesome. All right, I guess that's pretty much it. I will remember to get up earlier, and that it's 7 o'clock here on the West Coast in Vegas. That's 10 o'clock on the East Coast for you guys. My apologies on that. My apologies on missing out the stream the other day. I totally forgot about it. I just totally forgot. I was at a cupping, and I walked out of the cupping like whatever time it was, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do a live stream. And one thing is also going to I'm going to take this. We're going to see if we can brew with this. Look at that. I'm actually when they gave me one, I was like, ooh, I'm going to do a video brewing with this thing. That's kind of awesome. Right? All right. Well, sorry for the delay. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to head out because I got to start getting prepared for today's convention. So hope you have a great one. And I will be back again tomorrow. Same bad time. Well, earlier, the normal time. and ready to go. All right, so hope you have a great one, and see you then.